the reason why I try so hard at everything that I do is, unfortunately, it's because I'm always trying to get better. It comes from a place of self-criticism, which again can be negative if you're in the wrong headspace, and then you get to this place of nothing's ever good enough. I'm not a good artist. But then on the flip side, it's like a double-edged sword. On the flip side, you're always pushing forwards and you're always learning new things, and I'm always trying to get better. And obviously, I've reached a nice medium now where I'm quite pleased with some of the things that I do, but I'm also able to look at things that maybe I could improve on, and then look at how I could improve on those. Because you can get to a position where you're so focused on what you don't know and the direction that you need to travel in that you forget to look behind you and see how far you've come. So I do make a point of looking at some old work and looking at where I was 7 years ago and comparing the way that I am now. But I've just learnt to enjoy that journey of always sort of pushing forwards.
The exciting designer and concept artist Gavin Manners joins us for today's episode, and it will be surely one which will leave you inspired, whilst offering you the chance to reflect on your own career and journey and where to take it next. Gavin specialises in hard surface design, from mechs to vehicles and everything in between. And whether it's personal or professional, he definitely keeps himself busy, as you'll find out in this episode, as he pushes and refines his craft. You'll also learn that his journey was not straightforward, having worked as an electrician, interior architect, and teacher prior to breaking into the industry as a concept artist. So let's get to it and hear from Gavin himself. Everyone, welcome back to the Learn Squared podcast. I'm delighted to welcome on a very special guest today, Gavin Manners. Welcome, Gavin.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me on.
Looking forward to talking. We've had a nice conversation before we've began.
A little warm up.
Yeah, but let's get the usual stuff out of the way. If you wouldn't mind letting everybody know who you are, what you do, and all of that good stuff, and then we'll get to the juicy stuff.
Yeah. So my name's Gavin, and I'm a hard surface concept artist. Currently working for a company called Gunmetal Games. And yeah, I just design a lot of weapons and design a lot of robots. In my spare time, I design robots and spaceships, and I like sketching. I like to think I can do environments as well, but again, it's not something that is. I'm not as specialised in environments as I am in my hard surface design. So that's my niche.
Mm. When did you realise that was like your thing? Did you kind of fall into it, or was that like a targeted thing?
Yeah. No, I fell into it. It's the thing that I enjoy doing the most. So I just did it a lot. So, but before I was a concept artist and I wanted to get into the industry, I fell into that trap of doing everything. Like, oh, I need to show that I can do this. I need to show that I can do this. So I just had this portfolio full of like a lot of trying to do a lot of stuff, but it wasn't very good. And then I started. My first sort of freelance job was hard surface design and vehicles. And then my first studio job was doing like vehicles and like track designs for a racing game. And it's like the stuff that I enjoyed doing the most. And then because I was doing it all the time and I got hired to do it, I just kept on getting better and better at it, and then it sort of evolved from there, I suppose. And the way my mind works, I just like solving those problems and dealing with those intricacies. And I find objects like mechanical design things, I find those really, really interesting. So I always just sort of gravitate towards that. And just sort of having that niche has in some ways been the secret to my success, because I get approached but for that specific niche. I sometimes get people asking me to do environments and things, but yeah, it's usually we have some ships that need designing, we have some mechs that need designing, because that's just like my thing.
Music to my ears is like, it's my favorite subject. and I think for a lot of people generally, like even if they do like specialize in something completely different, there's an appeal to things like that, especially when it's done well. So like, how did you like how you mentioned the word intricacies? Like that's a great way to describe your work as well. Like when you look at it, it's like wow, this is awesome. Then there's a lot of intricate little things going on. And yeah, you can call it detail, but it seems, at least from my take or my abstract way of explaining it, is like you find a nice way in those intricacies to add character. And you can tell, okay, that's Gavin's kind of work as well. Do you ever get bored of hard surface yet? And how long have you been doing it for?
I've been properly in the industry for since 2018. So August 2018, I got my first proper job. So yeah, just under 7 years now. No, I don't get bored. Well, because it's not even necessarily the subject. I think the subject is very interesting, but the thing that I really enjoy is the problem solving.
Yeah.
And I'm always creating new things. I'm always very conscious, and I know that I have this. I have this this kind of form language, and it's my kind of thing that I'm always doing, and I'm always trying to push out of that because I think it's like annoying. I don't want all my stuff to look the same, so I'm always trying to push outside of that kind of muscle memory.
Right.
So when somebody comes to me and they say that they want this ship designed, I don't want that to look like a Gavin ship. I want that to be the thing that they want. I want to help them get to that conclusion, I suppose. So I'm always trying to push outside of my my thing that I do, which I think comes across more strongly in my personal work, because obviously that's like those sketches, those those truck sketches. That's just something I do for fun. So that's very Gavin style, I suppose.
When did you become aware? And when did you become aware of like, or that make a conscious decision to kind of like, I guess, trying to break away or constantly evolve that aesthetic that you mentioned? Like, was it a particular thing that triggered that, or was it something that you became aware of?
Yeah, I think the reason why I try so hard at everything that I do is, unfortunately, it's because I'm always trying to get better. It comes from a place of self-criticism, which again can be negative if you're in the wrong headspace, and then you get to this place of nothing's ever good enough. I'm not a good artist. But then on the flip side, it's like a double-edged sword. On the flip side, you're always pushing forwards and you're always learning new things, and I'm always trying to get better. And obviously I've reached a nice medium now where I'm quite pleased with some of the things that I do, but I'm also able to look at things that maybe I could improve on, and then look at how I could improve on those. Because you can get to a position where you're so focused on what you don't know and the direction that you need to travel in that you forget to look behind you and see how far you've come. So I do make a point of looking at some old work and looking at where I was 7 years ago and comparing the way that I am now. But I've just learned to enjoy that journey of always sort of pushing forwards. And the thing about the art community is there's always someone better, and there's always someone who does your thing better. So I'm always looking at other people and just sort of going, okay, well, how have they done that? How can I do this? How can I make mine better? What are they doing there? And again, if you're having a bad day, that can be a bit overwhelming, because the mindset is, oh God, I'm never going to get that good. What am I doing? What's the point? Which, I don't really enter that headspace anymore, but I did before. But now it's like, okay, this is super positive. How can I have a look at what they're doing and maybe incorporate that into my work, or maybe push my work into like a better place? But yeah, I don't know. That's a very long answer. I'm sorry.
No, for sure. I'm happy. I love the long answers as well. No, I think that's a great way to explain, I guess, the kind of like journey, especially creatives go through, especially that relationship with discussions with yourself, discussions with your work, discussions with your growth, at the same time in being in a competitive industry and trying to compare yourself to others as well. And to some, it can be healthy being in a competitive space. To some, it can be quite, not toxic, but it can really mess people up and give negative habits and stuff.
I think you have to harness it in the right way. Oh yeah, one of unfortunately, again, I can't speak for everybody, but I think that so because creativity is such a personal thing. So there's two aspects to this. The first aspect is, in order to become a successful artist, you almost have to divorce your creativity from your sense of self, because then you're not going to be able take criticism or have feedback, but you absolutely have to be able to take criticism and feedback if you're working in an industry, because ultimately you're creating a product for somebody else. But there is that aspect that I do really think that your creativity is intrinsically linked to your sense of self, and unfortunately, especially in the past, there have been. I used to be prone to, okay, this bit of artwork isn't good, or this bit of artwork isn't perceived in the way that I would have hoped. Therefore, I'm a terrible artist. And then that goes down to all the way down the levels to I'm a terrible person. Which again, perhaps is a little bit on the dark side, but it took me a bit of time to kind of find that balance between using that self-criticism to improve constantly, but also not get to that level where you want to just give up because the task of becoming a good artist just seems so insurmountable. But the key is I enjoy doing the work so much. You wouldn't do this to yourself if you didn't enjoy doing the work, because it would just be it'd be too stressful.
Yes. No, I think that's beautifully put, and especially like you just nailed it there. Like if that's happening in whatever you're doing, but there's nothing enjoyable in that situation, then it's not going to end well. So if you can get that situation, but yeah, the beauty of like the things that we do is there's a lot of joy to be had in creating, especially nailing it when you finally, realize what you want to realize, kind of thing. But I think it's interesting as well what you mentioned there. Like it is also a great kind of like secret weapon that we all have if we use it properly. Like that self-conversation, that self-criticism, almost that self-awareness. It can be a bit too much, but being able to kind of like see that and react to it is a very unique kind of feedback that you can't get from elsewhere, because who really knows you better than yourself? Yeah. But then looking back on my life, it's only recently where I kind of knew myself very well.
Yeah.
And I look back at myself thinking saw myself as a stranger quite a while ago. So when did it kind of like click for you? Like, or I guess a better question to ask is, those things you mentioned about like doing work or getting in a situation where kind of like you start being negative towards yourself. When was the last time you felt like that?
Couple of weeks ago.
Okay.
So there's a, and it was interesting because I noticed it happening because it doesn't happen very often, and I was like, okay, that's interesting. So there's a lot going on at the moment. So as mentioned, so I've been sorting out visas. I'm trying to buy a house at the moment before I go. We've been sorting out the wedding, and we've just had Christmas, and it's my fiance's 30th birthday in a couple of weeks. Obviously that would have gone by the time this goes out. So there's a lot going on, and I'm still, over Christmas I didn't produce much artwork, and after about a week I get a bit itchy, like, I need to be doing something. And I had these two bits of artwork. So one was the demolition recycler mech tutorial, and there's the added complication there as I'm recording myself as I'm doing it, which adds another level of kind of doubt. You feel like you're being watched as you're trying to do it. And then I'm doing this other. It's pretty standard stuff. I just enjoy doing it. It's a big sheet of spaceship sketches, and there's like 50 spaceships on one sheet, and I just go around noodling away at these ships, and it's just quite a fun thing to do. And for both pieces of artwork, at the same time, because I dot around, I don't just do one thing and then finish. I kind of do a bit of this and then come back and finish later with my personal work anyway. I got, in the same week, I got to a point with both pieces. It's like, I don't know how to finish these. I'm at a point where I'm sticking. I don't know how to get this to the next stage. And what it just needed was I stepped away for a couple of days and came back to it and go, oh, okay, no, now I know what I'm doing. But at the time, I was like, oh my God, what's wrong with me? I should be able to do this. Like, I don't understand why I can't do this, and why doesn't this look good? And actually, they looked good. I've been looking at them for too long, and the pressures and stresses from other parts of my life just kind of taints your view of these things. Or if I'm not in a particularly good mood, for example, that will be reflected in the way that I view my artwork. But like I said before we started, I'm really proud of that that demolition recycler. Like, I'm really pleased with how it turned out, and
Mm.
the tutorial has been very positively received. It feels like a real achievement because it's like the first proper thing that I've made and put out into the world, and people were interested in kind of buying it. So yeah, that's been really, really nice. But that I wouldn't have been able to. So 10 years ago, I would have given up.
Mm.
I would have gone, oh, that I'm obviously not good enough. This isn't working. Give up. Do something else. But because I've learned that ability to stick with things and push through, I was able to get to a point where I was really pleased with what I produced. I actually think I've been thinking about this the last couple of months, actually, because it is like, so like there's lots of people who want to be artists, but not many people become successful artists, and I still don't really know why I don't know why people want to give me money for producing artwork. It's still like a really strange concept to me. I'll never take it for granted, because I've had other careers before this. So I got into this when I was 32, 31. Yeah. So I've done crap jobs, and the fact that people want to give me money for doing this is just absolutely bonkers to me. But I think what differentiates, the thing that I think made me successful was being able to push through that creative difficulty and that those sticking points, and make myself produce artwork even when I wasn't feeling it, when I was coming into difficulty, when I didn't want to, or because there's this thing. I know I've heard this before. It's just like, oh, I wasn't feeling inspired today. Oh, I'm not feeling artistic today. It's just like, it doesn't matter, man. You got to do it. Like, you have to find a way of doing it and enjoying it. Otherwise, you're not going to get those hours in that you need. I spend 50 hours a week producing artwork, and is that an exaggeration? Maybe 40. Well, my day job
sounds reasonable to me. Like,
yeah, no, I guess
generally thinking, like, it seems quite par for the course, I think.
Yeah, no, okay. So my day job is 37 and a half, but taking into lunch breaks, let's say, like, I don't know, 32 and a half, and then I do loads of stuff in my spare time when I've got the time. I know my fiance and I live together now, and so I've been doing like life stuff, relationship building. We do nice days out and things, so there's slightly less personal work, but I still really enjoy sitting down and just doing sketching. So yeah, 50 hours is probably a conservative estimate. And if like some of those days I go, oh, I'm not really feeling it, then that's just chopping hours off of my mileage. And I think the way that you get good is just by mileage, unless you're like a protege or a genius, but I'm not either of those things. So I unfortunately, the way I get better is by mileage and experience.
Well put as well. Like, mileage is a great one. And yeah, but then generally speaking, like, obviously you said like there's less time, or you're kind of doing less time because doing other things like life, for example. Do you enjoy the fact that you're away from the canvas during that? Even though obviously you got that frustration, kind of like, I got stuff to do, I got things to do. You kind of get a bit, itchy fingers or trigger finger or whatever. But at the same time, surely there must be like, but I'm also enjoying the fact that I'm doing this thing as well.
So my girlfriend Jordan is very supportive of what I do, and she understands. Well, she's a musician, so she understands that kind of creative drive. So she writes music and she sings. Nice. She understands that creative drive to want to produce things, and so she kind of understands that I do need time to be doing things. But we've managed to find a really nice balance where I get enough of the thing that I need when I'm working and producing things, and we make intentional time for each other. So we're actually talking about this the other day, because it's I think it's really important to kind of I think it's important to define these things and to kind of set expectations, not in like a formal way, but because I don't know what your experience is, but this perhaps isn't necessarily to do with art, but I think maybe we'll loop back round. You can get into the habit of just like coming home from work and you're tired and you just sit in front of the telly all night. I hate doing that, because if I'd rather be doing things like painting or drawing rather than sitting in front of the telly. So what we do is we make all the time, let's say 90% of the time we spend together is intentional, so she likes board games and things. So yeah, we'll have a board game night, or the other night there's these books that you can get called they're called adventure books or something, and they have these scratch things, and you go through, and it gives you little symbols as to what the activity is, and you go, let's try that one. You scratch it off, and you have to do the thing that it says in the box, and it gives you all these weird things to do that to get you out of your comfort zone. So the other one we had the other night was you have to make a comic, like 6-panel comic book based on like key moments in your relationship,
right?
And then we spent the whole evening just like reminiscing and thinking about things that we did. Which 6 things are we going to pick, and how do we draw that? And then you have to write a caption, then translate it into Chinese. For some, I don't know why, but it was a really cool process to have to go through. But that kind of that intentional time that we spend together, it feels so much more valuable. So I never feel like I'm wasting any of my time, and therefore I don't feel like I don't have the right balance. So when I'm doing my artwork, the time is quite intentional, unless I'm having a bit of a difficult time with it. Then I get stressed out and I need to have a little think about what's going on. But the time that I spend with my friends and Jordan and family, that's also very intentional. I don't know if you feel like this, but we're both 40 next year. As middle aged, as you say, as time goes on, it feels like there's less and less time. Time seems to go quicker. So I don't want to be sitting around spending my days doing nothing. I feel like I just feel like something's missing if I'm not doing something. But you could argue that I potentially don't know how to relax, but I don't know. I don't know. I have maybe that's something to think about.
There could be something in that, like for sure. Like, and honestly, until you do like a proper MOT and diagnostics on the psyche and everything, which is not happening anytime in our lifetime, most likely, it's hard to really know. So it's interesting. Like when we try and like figure ourselves out, it's literally researching in the dark. Like you can't really know. You kind of just have to like hit and hope and see what happens. But to what you just mentioned there, like, I don't know what it is, but I'm the same. Like, I can't not do stuff. That makes sense. Like, days off feel like I'm doing something wrong. And days off are very rare. Like, my family are just used to me having something happening, having something going on. But to your point as well, like, it's very important for us now, like, balance-wise, that we have to make time. That family time, not just only us as a whole family, but granular, like with every individual part of the family, like, quality time together and doing stuff that's just not revolved around whatever all of us have got going on. Because the way I want to live life, and I'm sure a lot of people as well, like I don't want everything to revolve around me, so to speak, because that's boring and that's weird, I find. But I know some people who love that kind of thing as well, and it's a bit of it's something that I just don't understand. But point being is that it's like, there's something about just not being able to switch off. However, I don't know if you find it, like, but when you do kind of like take that time away, which I definitely have learned to value way, way more. 10 years ago, maybe even more, to find that balance, it was just a whirlwind. Like it was chaos, trying to figure it out, a lot of frustration, blaming things as opposed to myself. And it was like, come on, mate, just figure it out.
It's like a skill that you have to learn, isn't it?
Yes.
I think. And perhaps it's just something that comes with time and wisdom and experience. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's that. And I think intention is important as well. Like you said, like before, you could have easily been like, okay, well, one of these things have to give. So therefore we can carry on. But if you get to the point where like, no, I'm not sacrificing none of these, but I want these to be equally important. That's when you have to make those breakthroughs. That's when you figure out either a hack or a way to make them both work, or realize I'm at my limit now. I have to kind of like take it back before you redline, and then to just find a different way to do things. What about your deal with patience? Like, are you more patient now than before? Or have you always been patient?
What capacity? Where do you think I'm patient?
I don't know, genuinely, like I guess
I'm actually quite an impatient person, unfortunately.
Okay. How does that manifest then? Like, is it like in a funny way, or does it get like a bit intense sometimes?
No, not at all. I'm a fairly chill person. I sometimes get what I call grumpy, and Jordan just finds it funny. yeah, she just tells me to stop moaning or something. But yeah, it's like even when I'm walking down the street and there's somebody in the way, it's just like get a move on. Like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
how do people get anything done walking at that pace? It's just like I've got things to do. Get out of the
We're
way.
the same. I have the same dialogue and dynamics. I get laughed at for my grumpiness, and I'm like super grumpy, and I have these people laughing at me, which I think helps as well. Like it makes me realize, okay, I'm taking myself way too seriously, but at the
It's
same
good
time,
to
I'm
have.
still grumpy and still annoyed.
Well, this yeah, it's good. It's good to have that. It's like holding up a mirror, and then you go,
Yes.
oh yeah, actually, okay, fair enough. But
But yeah, I still stand by that grumpiness. But I guess,
yeah,
like you said, we're middle
it's
aged, maybe it's a
endearing.
middle aged thing. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
What was your life like before that then? So before concept art, all the jobs that you did, let's know about that, Gavin.
Well, so this is like my origin story that I tell. So I've told it before, so I won't go into too much detail. But so the way I grew up, so I grew up, on a council estate in the '90s. Going to like a state school or whatever, and I knew I wanted to be an artist. I loved drawing, and I loved like Warhammer. I used to draw Space Marines and things, but there was nobody in my environment. I didn't have like a proper dad or anything growing up. There was nobody in my environment that indicated that it would be a possibility that you could draw pictures and make money. So I didn't even see that as an option, which is why I started so late. So when I left school, I was just sick of being skint. Like I just wanted some money, and then somebody said, "Oh, you can make money being an electrician." I was like, "All right, okay." I did that for a bit, and it was nice having money for once. But I was just absolutely miserable because this was the age of like 16, 17, 18, where everybody else was at college having parties and meeting people their own age, and I spent all day with some grumpy old man, like being his electrical apprentice, driving around in a van, replacing like old people's light bulbs and stuff. And the trouble is, I'm just a little bit, I'm a creative person at heart, but unfortunately, with that comes a certain sort of sensitivity, and I just didn't have what it took to be around building sites and blokes and football and beer and birds, and I just wasn't like that at all. So I was just so like shy and kind of like I just felt so out of place.
Right.
And then, so I did 2 years out of the 3-year course because I just thought I'm miserable. I think I was depressed, to be honest. And at the same sort of time, so I grew up in a town called Worthing on the south coast. It's like an old seaside town. It's about 10 miles away from Brighton.
Right.
And when I was 19, my mum moved to Brighton from Worthing, and so I used that as like a cutting off point. I was like, okay, so I'm going to go to Brighton. Brighton's all creative and trendy, and let's like reinvent myself. And so like, I'm gonna pursue art. I don't know where it's going to take me. I just want to be able to learn how to draw and be in that kind of environment. So I started an art and design course. It was a national diploma because I started a bit late.
I had the same thing.
Yeah, nice. Because normally you do A levels and that, don't you?
Yeah. It was like that bridge when before they've officialized A levels and made it standard.
Yeah.
It was like AVC or something like that.
Yeah,
It was along the lines of that. But sorry, carry
got
on.
my BTEC.
This is it. BTEC.
Yeah. It's nice talking to somebody who's a similar age, who's done a similar thing.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. Oh no! So I was just going to say, I did my art and design course in Brighton for 2 years, and again, I just wasn't. It had like an illustration bit, a fashion bit, and a 3D design bit.
Yeah.
And the illustration was always just a bit like I've always loved like robots and sci-fi and mechs and stuff, but the illustration bit was all a bit like arty-farty and like like those coloured illustrations that you get in the Guardian or something like this abstract nonsense, like corporate kind of illustration. I just I'm not really feeling that, so I did 3D design instead, and then I sort of started getting into like architecture from that. So I was like, okay, this is cool. I'm pretty good. I seem to be able to visualize 3D things in my head. I seem to have like a propensity towards three-dimensional things. So I did my 2-year national diploma in 3D design, and then I got onto an interior architecture course at Kingston University, because it seemed to me like it's fine, it's cool, it's not what I want to do. I felt very out of place. The course was good, but when I went into into the workplace. So I worked in these very trendy design studios where everybody wore like black turtlenecks, and like everybody was very lovely, but it was definitely an environment where I didn't feel like I belonged there.
Mm.
You know, work
kind of like doing on building sites and being an electrician is a similar kind of thing again.
Well, it's just again, everybody was perfectly nice, but I didn't feel like that was my thing. But it was creative, and I could make money from it. And you know, after I did it for 8 years, and I turned 30, and it's like, yeah, okay, this money's okay, but like, what am I doing? Where am I going? Like, I had a bit of a quarter life, no, like a third life crisis at 30, and I just like, you know, because I'd become aware. You know, towards the end of my 20s, I'd become aware of concept art and Feng Zhu's design cinema on YouTube, and I was just like, but again, like I just had no sense of self-worth. So I was just like, there's no way I'm going to be able to do that. There's no way, you know, especially as I'm nearly 30. Everybody who is successful starts this when they're like 18 and they've got all that experience, and it's just like, this is way too late for me, surely. But I turned 30, and I was just like, I'm just miserable. Like there's got to be more to life. So I actually did a bit of teaching. So I'm a qualified teacher as well. Wow. I did teaching part-time alongside doing some freelance interior design work, because I felt like that would give me the fulfillment and the meaning that I needed.
Was it like general teaching or specific?
It was actually, it was teaching like design on a game course. It was like games adjacent. So because I knew how to draw perspective, and I'd been looking at Feng Zhu and John Park, and I kind of, you know, John Park at the time was talking about like kit bashing, physical kit bashing with models. So I went into this game course, and it was like this supplementary side thing that the kids did for like extra credit or whatever, and I was like teaching them we did like kit bashing, and then they spray painted them and they photoshopped over them. You know, my work back then wasn't particularly good, but I was like, okay, this is cool. Like I can see this kind of design is really interesting. But I also felt like a bit of a fraud, because I was trying to teach these kids about games industry and games design, but I didn't know. I'd never worked in the games industry. And then the way that I tell this story is, I still think this is how it happened, but there's probably some other things that happened around the same time. But Brexit happened in 2016, and and up until that point, I'd kind of been doing like mech sketches, and I'd been looking at Feng Zhu's design cinema and trying to do my own drawings. And when I'm doing my art train course at the moment, and at the beginning of the course I show everybody all my old work. This is what I was doing. I was watching the Feng Zhu videos and showing and doing all this crap work, and I was like, I'm going to learn how to do this and how to do that, and why is he doing this and how is he doing that. And I had this, I put everything on my art station with my 4 followers or whatever, and Brexit happened, and then because I was an architectural visualizer, so I wasn't doing any designing, but they would come to me. Design practices would come to me with like designs and drawings, and I would make that look like a photo and show, and then they would put that into client presentations and say, this is what you're going to get. And that paid pretty well, but it was pretty dull. But I was still learning Photoshop and learning 3D Studio Max and V-Ray render engine, all that kind of stuff. But then all that work dried up when Brexit happened, and I just maybe think nobody knew what was going on. So there was about 8 months where I didn't have any work, and I got to the point where I was like selling stuff to pay for my rent, because I was just like, but I used that time to work on my art station, and even though I didn't have any interior design work, I would very consistently be drawing and trying to produce stuff and trying to learn stuff. And I just got really, really lucky. I was contacted through my art station by a company called Rooster Teeth. Do you know them?
Yep, familiar with them. Yep.
They went under last year, I think. Yeah. But at the time, they were like all the rage. They did this series called Ruby, and they contacted me because they wanted me to design some stuff for them for this internet series that they were doing called Genlock, and it was like Gundam style mechs, and you know, it was really cool. They didn't pay me very much, but I didn't care. It was like, what, you're going to pay me $15 an hour to draw mechs? I was like, sign me up. I'll do whatever you want. And that was a year and a half maybe. And I went out there to see them as well. Everybody was really cool, and it was just really nice. So I was doing this freelance work, obviously very unsure of myself. I was like, oh my god, I'm a fraud. Like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. Like, but I learned so much from them. They were really cool, really supportive. And then I went out there and I was in the Rooster Teeth studio, and I was like, oh, and everybody was doing their thing, and there's desks everywhere with like everybody's got like Cintiqs and designing, animating. I was like, oh my god, this is so sick. Like, this is where I want to be. Like, because before this, I was working in my room at the end of my bed, like just sketching away on my little Intuos tablet. And I was just like, right, I want to be in a studio where I can learn things from people, because I could see that's what was holding me back. And to be honest, this is what's holding me back now. Like, I mean, we haven't mentioned it yet, but my new venture, so I'm moving out to Dallas in March. One of the main reasons I wanted to do that is because I need to be back in a studio with all these people, and then my artwork is just going to like skyrocket, because the exact same thing happened when I went to Atom Hawk. Like, I gave up a perfectly good job in Brighton, because I knew Atom Hawk, that 40 or so concept artists. I knew I would just learn so much. So there was this long story short. I know I've been talking for quite a while now.
No, keep going. It's cool.
I was doing this Rooster Teeth job, and I now had this goal in mind. I was like, right, okay, this is where I want to be. I want to be in a studio. I know that's what I need, and I want to feel part of something. And that again, that's the kind of feeling that I have now. So I was like, okay, what game studios are there? So I tried to apply to like. I knew somebody who worked at Creative Assembly in Horsham, which is down the road from Brighton, and I went for an internship there. I didn't get it, but again, got some really valuable feedback. And then I discovered that I didn't know, I've been living in Brighton for like 15 years at this point. I didn't know there's this huge games industry in Brighton. And I ended up, I was dating a girl at the time, and then I was talking to her about this. Like, I don't know any game studios, or I need to meet some game people or whatever. And she goes, oh, well, my friend Phil, he works in a studio with a concept artist. You should go meet them. And I went to meet Phil, and it was a guy called Giles Ketting, who I'm now in a studio with. So he's a super cool guy. I met him briefly at Industry Workshops 2017, which is where I went, and I was just like, oh my god, I feel really insecure. Like, I don't work in the industry.
Was that 2016?
2017. Yeah, that was my first one. Yeah.
One of those years I had the same experience. Sorry, yeah, carry on.
Yeah. No, again, that was another point where I was just like, oh, I want to be part of this. This is awesome. Look at all these people doing all this cool stuff. And I bumped into Giles there, and we had a chat. And then, I was like, oh my god, it's you. And then he started telling me about, we do this thing every like second Friday of the month called Games Industry Drinks. And I was like, really? He goes, yeah, you should come down. And again, like, I'd been in Brighton for like 15 years at this point. So I was just like, this has all just been happening here, this big Brighton games industry. I had no idea. So I went down to this thing like on my own. Because I don't have a problem just chatting to people, and I just chuck myself in at the deep end. I did feel a little bit insecure, but after a couple of drinks, you just sort of loosen up. And I ended up, he's one of my best mates now, a guy called Joe Sargent. So he was art lead on Studio Gobo on Hogwarts Legacy. So he's like really knows his stuff. But I just randomly, because he's quite outgoing and quite kind of cocky, and we got chatting just randomly, and I was showing him my portfolio, and he was obviously, he just taking the mick out of me, because that's just what he does. He's very like brash. He does rub some people up the wrong way, but I love it. I think it's brilliant. And he just says, oh, I'll show my art director. And but he's a man of his word. He showed his art director, which was a company called Electric Square. So at the time they were doing like racing games and things, but they work on all sorts of cool stuff now. Like they were doing really, really well. And then he man of his word, showed my portfolio to his art director, and 2 weeks later I had a job interview, and then they just gave me the job on the spot. Because what I had in my portfolio was what I enjoyed doing, which was like hard surface stuff like robots and things like that, and spaceships, and they needed a vehicle designer to design vehicles for a racing game that they were working on. And then I worked there for 18 months, and then I got headhunted by Atom Hawk, and I really, really, really loved Electric Square. I loved working there. It had a really good like community feel, and I'm still friends with well, so they don't work there anymore, but I met a guy called Finn McAvinci, so he's one of my best mates, and I met him working there. Joe, of course, and a girl called Jade, and all these people that I'm still friends with. So it was such a nice environment, and I didn't want to leave, but I knew Atom Hawk would just. I felt like I was plateauing. I was like, I need to learn some more stuff. Like there was only two concept artists, and an illustrator, and I was just like, I need that next level. So I left I love Brighton. I love my job. I loved all my friends, and I went up to Newcastle, to Atom Hawk. And then COVID hit, and it was probably one of the most miserable years of my life because I've just left everything that I loved and just sitting in my bloody apartment in Gateshead, working remotely. And I wanted to be in a studio. I wanted to be learning from all these people. But it was a learning experience. But yeah, I really loved Atom Hawk. But again, I got to a point where I was just like, I need that next thing. I need that next thing. Maybe I got a problem after like 2 years. I just go, right, I need the next thing. I need the next thing. But yeah, anyway, sorry. I said it was going to be short, but I haven't stopped talking.
This is fine. No, it's so good. It's so good.
But yeah, now I live back in Brighton, and I work remotely for an American company. Which is it's working out really, really well, but I'm really missing that studio feel and that working with other concept artists. Like I'm the only concept artist on the team, right. So I feel like my learning is plateauing. So so I'm basically I'm going to be a principal concept artist, and I'll be working directly with my one of my top 4 concept art hard surface heroes. So you've got like Scott Robertson. You've got like Darren Quash. You've got Brian Sum, and then Emerson Tung. So I'll be working directly with Emerson Tung, and wow. I just cannot wait. I think, and the whole team, the concept art team, like Jordan and I went out there to visit everybody and to see what the studio was like, and oh man, there's just top tier stuff. Like it's going to be so good. Everybody's really cool. The level of artwork that they're producing is like top tier, and I'm just like, right, I just can't wait to get stuck in and start learning and start producing something like that. I'm really, really excited. I haven't been this excited about a job or like a life change in like a long time. So
wow, that's amazing, and that's really, really like encouraging and inspiring to hear. Emerson Tung is incredible, and
he's so cool.
The energy that you just showed there of how excited you are, like that is quite infectious. And it's also cool as well, like of all the things that you could be proud about, and obviously like, I guess, just say like, yeah, this is what I want to do, whatever. It's literally the case of like, yeah, I just want to be somewhere where I'm inspired or learn things. And it's almost like, not like childlike, but almost like playful. Like it's almost like, just, wide-eyed, and give me, what's in front. Is that your first time moving abroad?
No, I had a bit of time in Denmark, so I was getting towards the end of my time in Atom Hawk, and like I love my time at Atom Hawk, and it was a great place to work, and I learnt a lot. But it got to a point where it's just like I'm not working on the things that I want to work on.
Right.
There was a couple of other things, and I'd been there for like 2.5 years, so I just felt like I need something new. I felt like my development wasn't going the way that I wanted, and it's just the nature of an outsourcing studio where you're not always going to be working on the things that you want to work on, and because I can do lots of different things, I would always get put on like Lego projects and stuff like that, and it's just like that's fine. Obviously I'd rather be doing this than like, I don't know, rolling around in loft insulation like I was when I was 16, but I want to be working on like hard surface stuff and mechs and all that kind of stuff. But so I was approached by a company called VisLab, and they were offering decent money. And I was just like, yeah, I kind of just fancy trying something new. Like, what is it like living abroad? And again, it's nothing to do with the VisLab guys, but when I went out there to visit them, because you have to go and go, okay, I see what, get a vibe for the place. And I got a certain gut feeling. I was like, this isn't going to be fun, or this isn't going to be right, and I ignored it because I was desperate to move on,
Right.
and that basically came and bit me in the ass. So it again, like, the projects were cool. They were very new companies, so there were definitely things that didn't work as well as they could have done. But I enjoyed working there. But it's just that at that point in my life, that's the point where I started deciding, like, I'd really like to meet somebody, and I want to start a family or something like that eventually. Like, obviously this is a very abstract idea, because but having been single as well, and you can't start going to people and saying, I really want to have kids. So it's this kind of abstract idea. I want to aim towards this goal. Yeah, exactly. Whether that works or not. Yeah. But it's a very small town in the middle of mainland Denmark, and everybody my age was already kind of settled down with kids, and I felt really odd because I was, I was like 36 and kind of trying to meet people. And also, it seemed to me like, so I met some really friendly people. Had a the type of people that I did get on with was it was really, really nice. But it seemed to me like it was very socially sort of conservative. And what I mean by that is, it's almost as if like they have their set group of people, and almost like they like it that way, and anybody else coming in, it's sort of a bit like, oh, who's this guy? And I just got that sense.
Right.
But there was like an animation school there called, I can't even remember what it was called now. And there was a few of the older students that were there, like 26, 27, 28, who I made friends with. But again, I just felt like, okay, I'm in my 30s hanging around with a bunch of students. It didn't feel quite right. And I don't belong here. I don't feel like I belong here. And I just sort of ended up getting quite unhappy because it's just like, I don't feel like, maybe if it was like Copenhagen or something, I'd be, you have this whole city to explore and meet people and bars and all this kind of stuff. But at that point in my life, I just felt like that was really missing. So I stayed there I was there for about 4 months. And I felt really bad because obviously they'd made quite a lot of effort to get me my visa and to get me over there, but I just kind of like, I don't sort of know why I'm here like this. What am I trying to prove to myself, So I came back to England, and well, at that time as well, I mean, things have died down a little bit because of the way the industry is, but at that time I get quite a lot of job offers through email, like, oh, what are you doing? Can we, like, recruiters and things like that. And there was this one recruiter that messaged me, and he kind of telling me about the project. So I was like, okay, I want to change jobs. Like, let's just chat to this guy and see what he says. Because I'm normally a bit sort of distrustful of recruiters because I know they're getting something out of it.
Yeah.
It's not for my benefit. But this guy was super cool. It basically turns out that it was a remote job from America, so the salary was about 4 times what you get paid in the UK because UK salaries are a joke. And it was designing mechs, and I was just like, right, sign me up. Like, it's gonna be a bit of an adjustment period, learning to work remotely and work from home, because I want that studio feel. But yeah, once I got my head into it, it's been really, really good. Just been sitting at home designing. Well, that's not true. I have an office space in town which I share with Giles and a couple of the other guys. I've currently got my Cintiq at home because I'm doing my course from here because that's on a Sunday. But yeah, it's been really good. It's a small company, and yeah, I mean, if I hadn't got this opportunity from ID, then I probably wouldn't be moving on, because I just get to draw mechs all day and get paid pretty well for it. So yeah, I can't even remember why I started talking about that, but there you go. There's my life story.
It's all good. There's a lot of things. What I will say is, and what I guess I will summarize it for the listeners is, there's a lot of people at all the different stages you mentioned who are going for that same thing right now and trying to figure out, like, what do I do? What do I need to do? Obviously, that's things that you've faced. And taken jumps where maybe other people, I definitely wouldn't have. What I've learned about myself is when I should have took a jump or took a risk, I didn't. I was quite like, risk averse. And then looking back now thinking, well, if I'd done that, things would have been great. Obviously, it's beautiful hindsight and stuff. And I think it's very important to, especially people who are still embarked on their journey and people who've already embarked on their own as well, to hear those perspectives and see how things panned out. Because there's always that thing where you want a crystal ball and how is it going to, work out, and then you kind of make moves that way. But that's not how life is. I like how you mentioned as well, like that vibe of approaching 30, that had the exact same dialogues with myself. And it was like a whisper, and then it slowly got louder and louder and louder and louder. And I was like, oh God, I haven't figured anything out. I'm still in this really crappy sales job. I'm hovering above minimum wage and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, what's going on? And then I was like, okay,
you just go like, you just go like, this can't be it, surely.
Yeah,
this can't be it.
Exactly. And then you guys arbitrary deadline of like, okay, it has to be when I'm hit 30 for whatever reason. And then it doesn't happen. I'm thinking, actually, what was it like when you hit 30? Because when it hit 30 for me, I was like, oh, okay, I'm still alive and it's fine. And so what was it like for you?
Well, I think it just sort of, hitting 30 was fine. But I guess it just made me think, like you say, like, okay, I'm at this age where I should, according to society or whatever, have my stuff together.
Yeah.
But I don't feel like I do. I don't know if you had this, and this is something that I try and kind of talk to people about, and I think it comes across a bit weird. But I've learned to listen to my mind when this happens. So when I turned 30, obviously there's over a period of time, but I always pin it on turning 30 and kind of thinking, okay, I'm not really doing what I feel like I need to be doing or want to be doing. I start getting this sort of existential dread. And what would happen is I'd be like in bed, like trying to fall asleep or be half asleep, and then just have this like really dark kind of clarity, this realization, like you are mortal, you are going to die. Like, and I kind of think, and I become very, very aware of my mortality. And that's really weird, and it freaks me out because that's not something you think about in your day-to-day.
Like, I'll have those same things.
Yeah, well, thank
exactly
God for that.
Yeah.
But
there's two of us that are going for this.
Yeah.
Everyone else isn't, but that is validating at least.
So, well, the way that I interpreted that is, this is my brain telling me, dude, you're running out of time. Time is finite. You need to change something because you're going to die and you're going to end up on being on your deathbed and having nothing to show for it and not being proud of anything that you've done. And so that and then I got into the games industry and that went away. Now what I will say is I'm approaching 40 and I feel like I was talking to Jordan yesterday because we have chats like this sometimes, and it's nice to feel like I'm not going mad, because she's just about to turn 30, so she's 9 years younger than me, so she's getting to those stages, but like a bit later. But it's nice to have that different perspective. I feel like I've reached the end of this chapter of my life, and what I mean by that is I've been doing okay. So money's great. I've got lots of freedom. I've got what's the word? Flexibility in my work hours. I can kind of do what I want. I can do personal work. I can do freelance work. But I'm that's great on paper, but it's like there's something missing. And I think I'm just, and so the especially approaching 40, the existential dread is coming back. So I'm listening to my brain, like, okay, what needs to change? Like, what do I need to do? And this is why I took that job at ID, because I feel like I need the accountability, and I need the framework and the structure of needing to be at work every day. I need that studio life with people, and also so this will be a while ago by when this comes out, but yesterday I watched the developer direct for the Doom Dark Ages. And I just got so excited, and I was just watching that video going like, I'm going to be there, like I'm going to be contributing to that. And in 12 hours it had 500,000 views, and everyone is so stoked about Doom Dark Ages, and it's just like that's what I'm missing. I'm missing that fulfillment of creating something or being part of something that everybody is just like so stoked for.
Yeah.
And like just being able to say, I'm not going to be working on Doom Dark Ages, but it just that feeling of like I'm part of something that is almost like iconic, like what I'm doing has meaning. And then going back to our conversation before we started recording, I really do feel like I am a little bit late, but my life has turned out in a certain way where this is just the trajectory that I'm on. If I'd have had kids earlier, perhaps I wouldn't be so far along in my career, but I'm reaching a point now where, since I met Jordan especially, I don't want to go out drinking, I don't want to go out partying, I don't want to go out meeting people. I want to start that next chapter of my life with her. We talk about kids all the time, and it's just like, I just can't wait to get started with that next thing. And I feel like I don't know, tell me what you think. That sense of having something that's more important than you, that's outside of yourself, you probably can't be selfish anymore. You probably can't be like, oh, me. It's just like, no, my kids are more important. I have to put their needs first, and then that gives you that kind of sense of like, I don't know, fulfillment. Am I just, is that just like a romanticized idea of what having children is like?
You try and be selfish. I don't try and be selfish all the time, but it doesn't work. And I guess that's like the way your dynamics tend to be as a family. But no, there is something very powerful about, look, let's take kids as a project, right? Like, yes, you're the creator of the project, but it has its own soul, it has its own identity. And when it's released, like, metaphorically or physically, whatever, it's like it takes a life of its own, and it connects, and it can do good things or bad things, and it's quite an abstract way. But yeah, like the being a parent and what it entails, because yes, there's like the selfish side of it, where it's like these use possessive terms like my children, my wife, and my family kind of thing as well, which is great. Like, it is a sense of pride, sense of dread sometimes, very frustrating sometimes as well. Like, it can get very, very, very intense. Just in terms of like when you got so many things happening, and if you can't balance them, whatever the reason is, then that's when like it can feel quite intense. But as you mentioned earlier, like, take a step back, figure things out. Anything that is your priority, you'll always find a way to figure it out. Whether you want to or not, it just always finds a way to work. But then there's also something powerful about being responsible for these individuals who will make their own lives going forward as well. And you get into very cheesy spaces, very philosophical spaces. My kid always calls me cringe all the time as well, but I love that. Like, I love being that embarrassing dad and stuff. And that adventure and stuff. And there's a lot of highs, there's a lot of lows, a lot of stress, like so much stress, like just worrying and stuff. And I remember growing up, I think it was the same for yourself as well. Like, we could just walk out, come back whenever, and it was like, be back by a certain time.
Yeah.
No one even knew where you were. You couldn't like, do find my iPhone or call somebody or something. This is like, I'm sure you remember like topping up your phone and getting 10 text messages for like £1 or something.
Mate, I had a Genie SIM card.
Oh, okay. Was that like a limited ones?
I think you had to top up £10 a month, and then you got like 200 free messages or something.
Oh, sick.
Yeah.
We had to rely on those times where, like, obviously the message center, you find a dodgy one and you get limited messages for like 24 hours. Otherwise, you have to be super economical with your text and stuff. Yeah. But yeah, like my point is that now, obviously, even though I lived in that time, I can't see myself being that kind of parent where, like, you kind of want to micromanage everything because you're trying to protect them, but that's almost like holding them back kind of thing. And it's a beautiful adventure.
Well, things are just different now, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, just the parent angle thing. But I'd also say for sure is it made me a better creative and an artist. Whether people see it or not is, I don't know. But I know from my angle, like, it makes me more purposeful. It makes me more deliberate. It makes me do things. Ironically, when I never had kids, my art productivity, where I had more time, I wasn't very productive.
There is something to that, definitely.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, finally got a gun to my head. Now work, and
exactly
those guns are my kids, which is a weird.
If you have too much time, it's almost as if your brain goes, I've got loads of time. I'll do it later. But
of course.
But when so Jordan went up to see her family last weekend, and I didn't go because I had my course on Sunday. So I had a whole day where I was like, oh my god, like, I can just produce something. And again, not like I can't do that when she's here, but I just don't want to because we want to do cool stuff together. And I just I carved out that pocket of time, and then I that's when I finished my tutorial. I was like, I worked from 10 a.m. to like 1 a.m. in the morning, and I was forgetting to eat and stuff. I was in the zone. Yeah. But if I had the whole week to myself, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't have done it. It would never got finished. Yeah. There really is something to that intentionality.
Yes.
And what I've found as well is, especially with burnout, I don't know how, and I guess we can talk about how you cope with burnout and the physical side of being an artist, because it's all, we tend to see just the, the finished piece and what we think is theoretical and the beautiful artistry, but there's definitely a physical angle to it as well. But I have suffered from burnout, definitely from being a parent and all these things that I can't unbalance. And what I found is when I do have like free time, somehow my brain figures it out and it just says crashes. And it's like, okay, now time to rest. And you try and work and you can't. Or at least you try to. And a simple task that takes 5 minutes can take me an hour. And I realize, okay, now's the time to like just switch off. And I've learned it's okay to switch off. Whereas before I'll be like, oh no, I don't have time. I have to kind of make the most of this. And I end up doing shit at work. Then
you always put yourself under too much pressure.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think the key is it has to be fun. Like if I'm producing personal work and I'm not having fun, then I know it's time to stop, or take a step back, or like have a couple of days break. It's strange. I very rarely get burnout with my personal work, but I do. There is that looming sense of if I don't post something, and this is ridiculous, but you go, if I'm not posting something regularly, then people are going to forget about me, or I'm going to get dropped by the algorithm or something like that. And I really don't like that kind of thought process. But that is unfortunately where my mind goes if I am kind of having a bit of a break, or maybe not being as productive. But I really try to put that thought out of my mind. Where does the sense of achievement come from when you produce artwork? Is it finishing the bit of artwork? So are you able to finish a bit of artwork and not post it on the internet and still feel the same thing? I haven't quite figured out the answer to that question yet, and I don't like the fact that my sense of achievement is dictated by something as fickle as social media attention. But perhaps that's something to work on in the future. You tell yourself that it's a marketing tool, but I don't know. Maybe that's some partial self-deception. I don't know. What do you think?
One of my duties at Learn Squared is, by accident, just something I fell into as well, like, is the social media side. So I see it for the machine that it is, and all the cogs and stuff that it is. Like, it's completely soulless. However, knowing me, my personal self, and when I put my work out there, the endorphin hits. Like, I can't deny my biology, and I can't deny the gratification that you get. And even as disciplined you can make yourself to be,
social proof, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just like that. Just the word validation, like whatever form it comes in, it's very, very powerful and very potent, whether you're immune to it or not. So there's definitely something to that as well. But I'm very well aware, purely because when you post something, it's all dependent on time, and even then, depending on the algorithm, maybe there's the servers are not down or whatever. But there's so many factors at play just to ensure that someone sees it. Not everybody will ever see it. Probably like 1 or 2% of your followers will ever see stuff. So then when you're up against that, it's like, it is pointless in terms of like trying to put value on that. But at the same time, I think in our community, like, we're all very online. We experience each other's work through social media. So I experience other people's artwork and seeing what my friends are doing and what my fellow artists are doing and the people that inspire me by doing it through social media as well. So it's weird, like, not love-hate relationship, but I can't get rid of it. But I kind of have to at the same time as well.
It can be very, very positive, but I think it's just being aware of the pitfalls. Sometimes, so I posted this bit of work up on ArtStation a few months ago, and I thought it was pretty good. And it is one of the very few pieces that just didn't get any traction at all. And I think the key is not being like, oh no, I'm going to delete it, I'm going to take it down, oh that's embarrassing, I'll just leave it up there. So I was like, well, I like it, so it's going to stay there. So I think posting something up is like that nice, it's publishing. It's like if you painted a painting, it's like, there's my painting, I want to put it up on a wall for other people to enjoy. But it's still staying true to yourself, that if it doesn't get all the attention that you want, that perhaps it's still an accurate expression of yourself through that bit of artwork at that time. Even if perhaps it doesn't resonate in the same way that you want it to, I still think, finish that, move on to the next one. Possible. I'm kind of thinking out loud here, but maybe that's the way to do it.
I think that is a great way to do it. And that's something that I have a relationship with as well. Like there's something about, and I used to be to that point as well. Like I never post anything. ArtStation, not only did I have probably half the followers you did at the beginning, like 4 out of about 2. One of them was my burner account. And then I also had like 2-3 pieces that took me months to make, which is insane. It's suicide as a concept artist to take that long on a piece and say, hey, hire me for something that's impractical, on a day-to-day basis. But anyway, it was a lot of insecurity, thinking I'm not good enough. I'm still learning the ropes and stuff. My habit changed when I just started, okay, I finished, I'll put it out. Put it out.
Yeah.
It made me accountable to myself.
Finish, not perfect.
Yeah, exactly. And I wasn't
Jake
like,
Parker.
I wasn't like looking at any followers or anything. I didn't expect anything because I knew it was not up there. But I guess I was at a state where I was like kind of building myself up, learning, trying to get into the industry. It's a bit different when you're definitely established and you're having a different conversation with your work. But that relationship has stayed, where it's just a case of when I post stuff, it's just done in that sense. And then it's a shame when I think I really like this one, but it doesn't seem to be as hitting as other ones, which I don't tend to like as much as that one. But that's also, on there and whoever's watching it. But at the same time, it's like, once I release something, it's almost like it's out of my system. Yeah. And then I can kind of move on. I can always revisit stuff, which I never tend to do. But no, it's interesting because I know some people who are very like, it's very important to them, the releasing of work and the social media side angle as well. And something that I don't directly understand, but I also acknowledge because I know it's a thing for people as well.
I think just going back to that point about old work, I think a good thing to do, I've only ever done it once and I keep meaning to do it again, so I took a bit of artwork that I did when I first started concept art. And it was a cool idea. The ship design was cool, but it was bad composition, bad painting. I didn't know what I was doing, and I redid that using like my current day skill set. And it's a really nice process to go through because one, it makes you realize how much you know and how far you've come, how much you've learned. And it's also quite nice to be able to do a piece of artwork where you don't have to think about what needs to be in it. All you need to do is think about a more intelligent way to do the composition and tell the story, and you can then play with the lighting. So the design was done, the vibe was done, and I was just able to okay, so what's a better composition? What's a better way I can tell this story? A lot of the time when you're starting a new piece of artwork, this is why I like designing stuff all the time, because the thing about the valuable thing about pieces of artwork that I do aren't necessarily the shots themselves, it's the design that goes into it. So if you've already got the design, all you need to do then is do the story and the composition and make it interesting and make it engaging. So yeah, I mean that's I much prefer having my designs and then putting them in a cool environment rather than painting landscapes or mountains or whatever. That's just what I find interesting. I am in awe of people that can paint a mountain with 3 brush strokes and make it look photographic. Like it's such a nice skill. Yeah, but I unfortunately can't do that.
I'm on a similar page to you, and there was something I heard at high school, like secondary school, we call it over here. I think I was in year 10 or year 11, where they said you only have to use a pen and you can't use a rubber or a razor. That would be called a rubber over here. And from there on in, I immediately took that as like, okay, I'm never going to do that. And I kind of still don't. But I'm also never going to throw anything away. And I kind of use pieces the same way. So I was like, even if I don't like it, I'll just leave it somewhere. If it ends up in the bin, that means I never cherished it anyway. If it's something that I'm kind of drawn to, I'll still kind of keep it around. And like you just said, it kind of nails it in terms of like, when you've done something good or that you're connected to. And sometimes it just takes a bit more time, or you need to level up a bit more to really let it sing. And I think a good example is when you see old films remastered, like they look great back then, but then when they're remastered, only because of a new format, it still holds up, it still looks great as well. And that's a kind of great thing to do with older stuff. And it's a good way to test if a design or something really works, because if it falls apart because you're giving it a high resolution or whatever, then it wasn't meant to be anyway. But I think that's what design's about. You got to test it. How do you go about testing your designs?
That's a good question. I go through this process that I call adding resolution. So when I start off drawing something, it'll be like a little thumbnail or a sketch, and I'll develop the sketch. But the way that I'm actually planning my lesson for tomorrow, actually, and this is the concept that I'm going to go through. It's this idea, yeah, you've got a good sketch and it looks lovely and it's all nice and loose and whatever, but how do we then make that into a functional design that can go into a film or a game or something? And what I do with mine is I then take that sketch into 3D, like Blender, and I start blocking it out and figuring out where my joints are and where my articulation points are, where the points of intersection are, how it's going to move, and really like figure that out in 3D. And then I'll have this like block out, or sometimes it's a kit bash, and then I'll probably do a little screenshot. And then I'll take that back into Photoshop and I'll start sketching over the top of that in order to add resolution. Okay, so I've got a working block out that I know intersects in the correct way, and I can imagine the joints, but then how do I then detail that up? And you can build that in 3D. Some people are very good at just detailing in 3D, but I find it's very useful for me to go back into the Photoshop, sketch over the top, and now I've got a sketch that I can model from, and then just keep adding those layers of resolution, and then you render it out and paint over the top, and then there's an extra layer of resolution that you can add, which is really digging in and doing like breakouts. So I just did that recycler mech tutorial, and it looks good and it looks like it could work, but it's a kit bash. So in order to pass that off to the next person, I need to take that kit bash and I'll either model it again in Blender, like the joints, because kit bashes, they all intersect and the joints kind of look like they could work, but actually if you started moving it around, it wouldn't really work. I'll do sketches to kind of show maybe an exploded view, or just show a diagram showing how this joint actually moves and how these parts kind of intersect. But I wouldn't draw that joint straight after just doing the basic sketch. I mean, I could do, but it's easier for me to get to that journey, to get to that end point of what this complicated joint needs to look like and what it needs to do by going through those other steps of adding that resolution. It's just it's a process of broad strokes and then refining down to your smaller strokes to add that detail, and that's just the way that I visualize it in my head. There are some people that can just draw like amazing working things just off the bat, but in order to keep generating new things and keep coming up with new ideas and keep figuring new solutions to problems out, I will go through that process of adding resolution, and Blender is a critical tool for me to figuring that out, because a sketch is all well and good, but you don't know if that sketch actually works unless you test it in 3D and start moving things around. And there's another layer to that. I actually have like a 3D printing thing that I do, and then when you start printing out your models, then you really see if they work or not, and you can really see if the things actually articulate or if they actually fit together properly, and that's the real test. Can it stand up in the real world? And that's why I find 3D printing like absolutely fascinating. It's like my new passion. I just love it.
It's something I haven't got into yet, but it's definitely on my bucket list. When did you start doing 3D printing?
It's probably a couple of years ago, actually. I've always had this idea. So I've been making model kits longer than I've been a concept artist. So I always liked Airfix and Warhammer, but I started getting into Gundam kits in like 2010. Like Bandai Gundam kits. You know what those are?
Yes.
Yeah, I do all the beautiful articulations, and that's actually perfect. That's really good for concept art, because you can have a look at how they design these joints and how they work and how the things fit together, and it's just such good reference.
Yeah.
And I was like, I want to make my own model kit. I didn't really know where to start, so I started. It's basically a Formula One racing robot, and they jump through the air and they race like Formula One cars. It's called a jump racer. Yeah. And I had this sketch, and I developed it over about 6 years, and the reason it took so long is because I didn't know what the hell I was doing.
Right.
So I did the sketch and then the rough model, and then started refining things in ZBrush, and then I try to talk to people. How do I make this print? But you print it out, and then you realize, in 3D you can just put things together, because 3D has like there's no point, there's no you can intersect the pieces, so it doesn't matter if there's no gap between
Mm-hmm.
the peg and the hole. When you print it out, it doesn't fit because you need a bit of tolerance around. So
Yes,
you
yes.
have to learn about that tolerance and what that tolerance needs to be. And then there's like shrinkage of like curing the resin and when it prints, and there's all this stuff that you have to consider. And then you have to also support it properly so that it prints properly. So it's such a big learning curve. So my first model kit, I needed a bit of help with that, so I was getting really stuck after about 6 years, and I was just like, I don't know what I'm doing. And I had this little printer, and I printed out this test model, and I was like, just it didn't fit together properly, but it's just like this thing that I had in the computer, and I now have it in my hand. It's like, this is incredible. I can't believe that I made this, and it is now in my hand. And then I got my friend Joel. We met because he contacted me about doing some designs because he has a 3D printing company. They print miniatures, and so I helped him with some of his stuff, and then he helped me with this. And he re-engineered everything to make it fit together really nicely. He did all these joints, and I did a Kickstarter. I sold like 25 of these kits, and it's just amazing seeing people painting up my model kit that I designed. I did my own one as well because I paint models too, so I've painted my own one up, put it up on the website, and it's just so rewarding. It's a really, really steep learning curve, but now I know what I'm doing. I just print it all the time. I absolutely love it. I've got a new model kit that I've just done called, it's like a jet bike type thing. I just model things up that I think are cool, like my own designs. So that's going to be going up on the website soon. I'm just printing one out at the moment to paint up. I just painted out a bunch of miniatures from Trench Crusade, which is like a new tabletop thing that's just come out. And yeah, I just absolutely love it. And the technology is just improving so quickly as well. So already the printers I've got are out of date. They've got new, better printers. So do you know a guy, Mech Nuggets?
I probably, when I look at the stuff, maybe, but not
Yeah.
that doesn't ring a bell.
So what he started doing, he's really well known for doing his substance modeler, so in VR, and he started modeling in VR using voxels, and then he gets those printed. So they're a bit different from my stuff because my stuff is more like the articulation, and his are more like statuettes, figurines.
Right.
But it's a much quicker way of producing models that are 3D printable than in ZBrush. So I've got my VR headset here. I use Substance sometimes, but he's inspired me to really get into it and start producing things in VR and see what that's like when it's printed. So that's going to be my next port of call for the 3D printing thing, because it takes so long to do these things. I'm just not, I'm doing tutorials, I'm doing 3D printing, I'm doing my day job, I'm doing personal work. It's just like, there's not enough bloody time to do all this stuff.
I was just going to ask, like, do you have a priority list with them, or are they kind of like all number one priority, but just whenever you can find time for them?
I strongly suspect I've got some form of ADHD. I really think I could be more organized, and I could do things like priorities. What I do is I get really excited and I do a thing, and then I'm like, okay, that's cool. And then I go, oh, I'm going to do this thing, get really excited, do the thing. I'm going to do this thing. I just forget about all these other things. And what's really frustrating at the moment is I've got all this stuff that I want to do, but when I'm focused on this one thing, I forget about all this other stuff. And I just dot around like 5 or 6 different things and then just completely forget. And I'm actually trying to figure out a system where it's like, I sit down, okay, I've got this to do, I can do this, but it's just like my mind goes blank sometimes. I get too excited about all these different things. I can't focus on like one thing. So it's amazing I managed to finish anything at all, to be honest. I really think if I developed like a proper system and focus properly, I'd be unstoppable. But at the moment, I'm stuck with this bloody foggy brained, darting around from project to project.
You mentioned foggy brain before we started the episode.
Oh yeah.
How do you combat that? Because I didn't even know it was like a thing until I realized it was a thing.
It's tricky. Well, like we talked about before, I notice that my concentration suffers when I haven't eaten properly or I've eaten the wrong things. So I don't really eat wheat or anything like that because I get really lethargic and really like tired and bloated if I eat like bread or pasta or anything like that. So I don't eat any of that. I try not to eat so much sugar because then you get the sugar crash, and I really notice it when I get a sugar crash. But yeah, I try and eat properly. I weight train 3 times a week, so I watch my calories as well, because I'm on a bit of a maintenance phase at the moment. But sometimes I bulk, and then you got to cut down to lean off, and then hopefully you don't lose your muscle, you just lose your fat as well, and you just look really buff. It's really good. I go boxing once or twice a week as well, so I'm always doing this kind of active stuff to keep my body going. And because I over Christmas I didn't train at the gym for like a week. And yeah, like I said, I didn't do any artwork for like a week, and God, I felt awful, man. Like I was just like, what is going on? I need that tightness in my muscles. I need that feeling that I've done something. Like I recommend to everybody should weightlift. I just think it just changed my life. And that kind of that discipline, that focus that's required to go and do that difficult thing even when you don't want to. I think that translates across the art as well. I've started doing ice baths in the morning. And man, when you wake up and it's like 2 degrees in your garage, and you could just, I'm going to stay in bed all nice and warm and cozy, the psychological effort that you need to get in that. My ice bath's about 8 degrees at the moment. To get in that water and stay there for 5 or 6 minutes, that's hard, man.
So have you got like a dedicated bath for that? Like, is it like a thing, or you just put ice cubes in your bath?
It's essentially a glorified paddling pool. Okay. My cousin gave it to me because he got a new one, and it's just like this big deep thing, and you can kind of sit in it with your legs crossed up to your neck, and it's supposed to be insulated, but it doesn't hold the temperature very well. But luckily it's freezing here at the moment, so I usually have these big bottles of frozen 2-litre water, and I use those as big ice cubes, and overnight that brings the temperature down. Just before Christmas I started doing like 4 or 5 degrees, and that is rough, man. Like I did that for a couple of weeks. It's just like, that's difficult because it just like your hands are just aching so much. But that sounds mental. The reason I like doing it, so you don't do it the day after you've trained because it can affect your muscle growth. I do it on the morning before I go to the gym, and it's really good for that psychological strength where you don't want to do it, but you do it. And then the feeling that I get afterwards is the physical feeling of when your body is tingling and you feel alive and energized, and you just feel like really, really good and hyped up. And then knowing that already by 9 a.m. you've already done the hardest thing you're going to do that day, that is just such a great feeling. Like I absolutely love it. So I've been doing ice baths for about 8 months now. I just absolutely love it.
No going back?
I'm just going to keep doing it. Well, apparently there's loads of benefits, like it really helps your inflammation, and I'm approached like we talked about already. This is now part of our personalities. We just tell everybody that we're nearly 40. Yes. I'm just way more conscious of looking after my body and making sure that everything's fine, because if my body's not working, then I can't do the things that I need to do. And there's apparent like long-term benefits to doing it, but I do it because it's really good for me, to just push through that psychological resistance, and I feel like I apply that to other aspects of my life as well. But it does sound mental. Like Jordan tried it, my girlfriend tried it at about 13 degrees, and like she nearly cried. She's like, "Oh, can I get out now? Can I get out now?" I was like, "No, I did 5 minutes. You got to do 5 minutes." She did like 2 minutes.
Oh, bless her. I mean, I've tried it like at a spa once, and everyone's just scared of that little tank. I went in it once. I was like, I only stayed there for like 5 seconds. I was like, wow, I feel like, I'm so like powerful from going in there because I'm in the ice. But I've heard of like the inflammation stuff. I have like a lot of physical issues, muscular issues, and that really like makes me happy thinking that there's something that can help with that. But what you mentioned there about kind of like almost like the psychological aspect of like psyching yourself up almost and getting you ready, for the day. Like I've never heard of that, but it seems logical. Like this like, crazy extreme thing that's technically not damaging to you. It's not like, injecting yourself with some crazy substances, but it kind of like perks you up. That seems cool.
Well, I started boxing when I moved back to Brighton, so I've been boxing for nearly 2 years now, and so this is, I hate confrontation, and I'm very conflict averse, and I will never been in a fight or anything like that, and I just started it as something to do like cardio, but it's actually been fantastic for my confidence because so I do sparring as well, and it was when I first started it was such an alien sensation to have this person in front of you that is hitting you and trying to hit you, and I've never really experienced that before in my life because I've always made a lot of effort to not get in trouble or not be in fights or anything. I was a very sensitive teenager. I tried my hardest to kind of not get into trouble with that sort of thing. Because normally teenage boys are like fight and all that kind of stuff, don't they? But I did my best to not get involved in all that. Also, when I was 17, 18, I looked really young. Like I looked like I was about 12 years old. So I've always had a bit of a baby face, which I guess kind of helped. But if you'd have asked me 4 years ago, I'd be like, oh no, I can't be asked for all that. But actually, like just learning that to be in that situation and knowing what to do. Not like I'm going to go out starting fights or whatever, but in terms of that psychological resistance of like, I'm now in a situation where somebody is hitting me, and putting yourself in that situation even though you don't want to, it really helped me kind of just feel like more confident in myself. Like, okay, I know I can do something difficult, and what's more, I can also learn how to deal with that situation. But I've been, you learn the tools in boxing to be able to deal with that situation. And so you're not like a victim, or you're not like a just a passive observer in you getting, somebody punching you in the head. They're 16-ounce gloves. It doesn't hurt really, but it's still quite an odd thing if you've never sort of been in that situation before. But yeah, it's really good. I really enjoy it, and it's really good cardio. And it's just done wonders for my confidence. Again, I've only been doing it for 2 years. I'm not very good, but just the fact that I'm learning to do new things with my body, again, as outside of artwork, it's just been really, really fulfilling.
And how has it helped you, or even influenced you, whether good or bad, as a creative, doing all these, like, I guess, so-called non-artistic things? It's more physical and more physical acts, but how does it affect you and your creative brain by doing these things, if at all?
The boxing not so much. That's kind of separate. But the thing that I just tell everybody, if you're an artist, I just think you should weight train. And the reason I say that is because we sit at a desk all day, kind of hunched over. I don't want to sound like I'm preaching, but I am going to give you a little anecdote here. So I've got a very good friend in Brighton who is a very well-known illustrator, and so she does she works on Netflix shows, she does like animations, and she does like children's storybooks. So it's that kind of thing. She is 31, I think, and she, ever since I've known her, so we started hanging out with our friendship group when I moved back to Brighton back in 2020. Beginning of 2020, 2 years ago, whenever that was, 2023. She has problems with her back and her arm and her shoulder, and she kept on going to chiropractors, and it would temporarily fix the problem, then it would start happening again. And I was just like, I really think you should start weight training. You should start weightlifting, because that's going to strengthen your body, and it's going to build your muscles up around all these ligaments and joints. And that's what the issue is. And to somebody who doesn't know anything about that, it seems really daunting, and it seems really scary to go into a gym, because the perception is it's all big muscly dudes. They're all on like steroids and all this kind of stuff. And then I finally, she had a real problem with her shoulder, and I finally, for her birthday, I bought her 2 personal training sessions. So weight training is like any skill. You wouldn't get into a car and just expect to know what to do without a driving instructor. So if you're going to start weight training, you should find a trainer that can teach you the skill of weight training. I've been weight training for 11 years now, and I've still trained with a trainer because I need that guidance and I need that accountability, because I'm not a sports scientist. But I just love having that kind of guidance, that accountability. And it turns out she said thank you, but apparently she was quite upset. She told me later after the fact that it's because it felt like I was pressuring her or something like that. But I was like, please, I promise you, please, this is going to work. And it's my friend who is he's not in the art industry or anything. He's just a really good personal trainer. But what's great about him is he's very calming, and he's a very chill guy, and he's not your typical personal trainer kind of guy. And what he focuses on is like mobility and strength strengthening your body so that you can do the things that you need to do rather than just putting on loads of muscle or whatever. And it was such a rewarding. I didn't do this for the rewarding aspect of it. I did it because it's my friend who's in pain and I want to help her, and I want to help her have a better life so she can do her job without being in pain all the time. And said to me, because she did go, because he's very calming, and convinced her to go. She had her 2 sessions, and she's been training with him for a few months now. He goes, yeah, she's had a breakthrough. She came into her session today and she said, I was drawing all day the other day, and I just noticed something, like my arm didn't hurt anymore. And it's just like, yes, this is it. If you look after your body and you strengthen your muscles and you teach your body the correct neurological connections to all your muscles, you're not doing all this weird stuff when you're drawing, tightening things up and squeezing your wrist in a funny way. It's just like, you need to strengthen your body so that then we can sit at this desk all day and then not ruin our bodies. And obviously there's other things like, some people can't do certain things, and I'm not saying, I don't want to shame anybody. But I'm just saying, for me, like, weightlifting was a game changer. Strengthening my body, strengthening my muscles. It allows me to do all the things that I want to do in my life. And it feels so good having a body that works and that does what I want it to do.
That's powerful. I've kind of had like a mixed journey with that. I have some like crazy chronic pains and still being investigated and whatnot. But I will say what you're saying is correct. Like strengthening. I've always had a dodgy knee, and I remember when I first started, like I prefer to do HIIT stuff, and I prefer to do it at home, but I prefer to follow programs because I can't just do it myself.
Yeah, definitely.
And if I go with the gym, I have to go with a friend. I mean, I tend to mess around rather than actually do proper stuff. So accountability is very important. But the pain stopped me from swimming. I love swimming. I couldn't do that. Even the weight stuff, it just got worse with the weight stuff. But with the knee thing, for example, I was like put straps on and everything because I couldn't support it. However, the repetition and putting weight through it, almost ironically, strengthened it up. And I could, so there's certain things I know when it starts aching, I can train that up again to be okay. But then the other stuff, like what you just mentioned there, like how your body kind of does jujitsu on itself when you're trying to like, okay, so if my next setting, I do this position, but then that setting, that thing, and then kind of like, it wants to be in a straight line, let gravity do all the work and be symmetrical. Yeah. And yet when it's not like that, then it's all weird and stuff. And, but yeah, to attest to it, people who are having aches and pains, if it's only starting to become a problem, get on it right away. Because when you're middle-aged like us, and like me, for example, it becomes a problem, who knows how far it can go. Because a lot of these things, like say arthritis or stuff that's kind of like done through repetition, as opposed to just your body naturally aging, you sleepwalk into it. It doesn't just happen unless you've had like a mad accident or something. It's stuff that started like I used to have a warehouse job, taking out American fridge freezers by myself and all that kind of stuff that you're not supposed to, washing machines and all that good stuff. The old TVs that were chunky as opposed to the super thin ones now. I've guaranteed I've damaged myself some back then and over time and stuff. So yeah, physical health is, because like you said, once you get that sorted, working through pain is horrible versus just working when you have no pain. Yeah. It's kind of like it's very annoying background noise and it messes you up.
But I should definitely caveat that by saying, like chronic conditions like arthritis and inflammation, all that kind of stuff. You can't. It's very. If I had like, so if I had like an autoimmune problem, that isn't something that weightlifting would really sort out. That's another issue. But I feel very fortunate that I don't have anything like that. But I obviously feel it's sad that there are people like yourself that have to deal with that sort of thing. So yeah, I do feel very lucky that that's not something I have to deal with. But and that allows me to train in the way that I do. But yeah, if there's nothing, if you've got no kind of like underlying issues, then I think crack on with it.
Oh yeah, no, for sure, definitely got to caveat that with seek medical advice first before anything else,
I'm not a doctor.
yeah, exactly. But generally, like there's just even like just whatever you do, some kind of exercise, it's running, walking, or whatever, doing that before you start your day, like there's just some calmness. I'm sure you feel the same in your brain when you're solving problems versus not doing it and you got loads of shit going on. It's like you seem to be able to handle stuff better, I found, like when you're working out. But my problem is consistency. When I'm on it, and it's great. Then when I fall off the wagon, it takes me ages to get off. And that's a thing that I have habits with as well. A few final questions before we wrap up. I'd love to know about
Has it been that long already?
Oh yeah, unfortunately, yes. Your inspirations growing up. Obviously, like we've understood like how you got to where you got to, and although like, I find your journey very inspiring, mainly because I can relate to a lot of it as well, and it also shows that like if the pathway isn't straightforward, there's still a pathway around things. But what always inspires you, like growing up? Like, there's always something that kind of like just did something give you the bug, or did you give yourself the bug of creativity?
So this is. I don't know. This is that's a deep question, because what you're asking there is if my interest in creativity is nature or nurture, and I don't really know. So this is slightly not answering your question, but it's also related, and it might also explain why I kind of feel the way that I do now about creativity. The proper answer to your question is like Transformers and Warhammer and Final Fantasy and all this stuff really built up my obsession with just this sci-fi and cool stuff and robots. And but the other answer that I want to give is when I was in year 4. How old are you in year 4? Like
3 to 6, I think, around that age, like well under 10.
Yeah, so I think saying if year 6 is 11 or 10, year 5, year 4, so you'll be about 6, 7 or 8, something like that.
Okay.
It is irrelevant, but that's something that I remember from the story. I painted. We were doing art in class, and I painted this picture of like a lily. And my mum still has it, and I looked at it the other day, and because I drew these pineapples, and it was like, well, this is awful. Like I cannot believe that I could draw based on this, but I was 8, so I give myself a break. I drew this picture of this lily, and like I don't want to like get into like too much kind of like psychological childhood stuff, but I didn't like have like a dad or anything like that. Had father figures, but that was a bit complicated when I was growing up. But when I painted this lily, I got everybody, like in the whole class, and the teacher was like, "Oh my god, that is really good! Like you that is a really good painting. You've done really well there." And I got this feeling of like validation or value that almost was missing, from having that kind of like absent parent figure. Maybe I think there's something to that, and then I kind of made that link between if I can be good at this thing, then I can feel valuable, or I can feel like almost like I'm worth something. Do you know what I mean? That's a little bit. I don't feel like that anymore, but I really remember that feeling, and I really do think that has something to do with the way that I see my creativity now. And again, that might be a little bit too deep for a podcast like this, but for me that was quite an interesting moment. And I think that's why when I became an electrician, for example, there was just something missing. Like, this isn't giving me the feeling that I want of like, I'm a creative person, I need to be expressing myself creatively. This isn't it. So that's why I kind of had to pursue a career in creativity in some form or another.
I like it. That's very cool, because like sometimes like you kind of in that moment saw the worth that this skill can give you, and like getting a little bit deep as well, like the way the brain works, especially when it's forming at a very young age, it's always trying to build a connection, and it's ultimately, although maybe this is a too simplistic way to look at it, all your brain wants to do is just survive. Like, that's the purpose of biological life, is survive. And say, this is, my peers have valued this, and you did this, so let's double down on this skill, because
that means I'm not going to be ostracized, and I'm not going to starve to death.
Yeah, it could be. It could be. But then you can also mutate and go wild and stuff, like Akira, for example. So so there's always like a dark part to the end of it as well. But I think like it's always like something. What I tend to kind of like the conclusion I make a lot of these things as well. Super complex things that we tend to think have like, or see that have like has how could this possibly be? Always starts in this very simplistic kind of like butterfly effect kind of thing, like a small flap when you were younger, and then it just kind of like, goes wild afterwards as well. Very elegant way to kind of explain something that we cannot explain, but that's it. Another thing as well, I was just speaking a bit online just about like, AI in the current age and stuff. And any thoughts you want to share on that? Or your current take on it as well? Like, what's your journey been like since AI has been thrusted upon us as artists?
So I've thought about this a lot, and I did a bit of a post about this a while ago, because obviously that we're all just kind of like inundated with AI slop, aren't we? And I think people sort of instinctively know that has no value. And I kind of go back to my gym analogy to kind of explain why I think that has no value. The reason why actual artwork has value is because it takes effort and time, and it's difficult to do. So, for example, if you were walking around and you could just pick up diamonds off the floor, they wouldn't be valuable because everybody would have a diamond. So it's the scarcity and the fact that they're difficult to come by, which is what makes them valuable. So I kind of feel like AI art just feels like that to me, and you just kind of instinctively know it's like, oh yeah, this is just crap because it took somebody 4 seconds and typing out some words to produce. But saying that, I've recently discovered a program called VizCom. Do you know VizCom?
I'm familiar with it. Yeah, I haven't used it for a while though.
So I actually touch on it a little bit in my tutorial that I did. Now, it doesn't mean that I've changed my mind on AI and its impact and the kind of AI generated artwork. I still don't think that has any value. But the way that I use VizCom, and this was like mind blowing to me. There's obviously the ethical side of things, and that does require a little bit more thought. The official line is VizCom have paid for their data set, and it's an ethical data set, so it's not stolen from anybody. But there is the idea that if you are using AI and you're feeding into that, then you're kind of encouraging the industry. And there's some people that just don't want it to be a thing at all. And I'm not sure how to approach that yet. It's such a new thing, and I just don't know if that is realistic, because it's kind of like Pandora's box. It's been opened, and you can't put it back in. So I don't know how I think about that yet. But the way that I've used VizCom is, and I have to be very careful, and I explained this when I did the tutorial, because I understand it is still a very contentious issue, and it still does upset quite a lot of people. But I don't want VizCom to do the artwork for me. I don't want it to render. I don't want it to generate things for me, because that's my job and I really enjoy doing that. So why would I want VizCom to do that thing for me? What I've been doing is you take a photograph of so I found all these like mechanical objects, and I put those into VizCom, and then you just press and it generates a 3D model from that photo. And what comes out is kind of like this approximation of what it thinks the 3D model is, and what it looks like, and the geometry and the textures. It looks like photo scanning, like a photogrammetry.
Yes,
so you take 20 photos of an object and you feed it through a traditional photogrammetry software, and you'll get a mesh. And that's exactly what VizCom spits out. And my mind just went to, okay, so I can go into the street and I can take a photo of something that's cool, and then I can put that through VizCom and I get a 3D model. So rather than having to sit there and take 20 photos and generate a model with photogrammetry, the AI will generate a model of what it thinks the object is for me. And that just blew my mind. Because what you can do is you can put your sketch in and then press 3D model. It creates a really crap 3D model of your sketch. It's like that's useless. I don't know what to do with that. And I just kind of thought, but hang on, what if we were creating things on a smaller scale? What if I used VizCom to create kit bash parts? And so I started experimenting, and I just got this kit bash library really, really quickly. And then I started building this mech, and I recorded the whole process. And like I got so excited about that, and it was absolutely mind blowing to me. And I started doing all these experimentations. But I will admit, in my excitement, because of how powerful that tool was, the kind of the ethical aspect of it did elude me slightly. It's like I was so excited about what I could do by making these models really quickly. I kind of wasn't really considering that that there's this complicated ethical issue of sort of furthering this kind of AI industry, which, you know, is putting people out of jobs. But I don't quite know what to do about it. You know, like this technology is there. It isn't making artwork for me. It's just kind of speeding up my modeling process so I can then design. What do you think? Based on what I just said there.
So the way, like, I'm not into using any AI tools at the moment. Although when I first discovered Midjourney, whenever that year was, I was like super duper excited. I was like, wow, this is so cool and everything, and excited. I was very naive in terms of even where it was coming from. I just assumed that, oh, they're getting people's images. That must mean everyone's getting paid, almost like when you use a sample in music, for example.
Yeah.
So obviously, when I was enlightened on that, I was like, okay, well, this isn't cool. That definitely influenced my stuff a lot. But long story short, mine was like a whirlwind kind of fling. Like I saw Midjourney, thought, this is interesting. I never ended up doing any artwork with it, but I was generating all these kind of like things that I knew what I could do with if I wanted to go ahead and stuff. And then circumstances meant that I ended up doing a project, didn't touch it for ages, realized that excitement went away, and then I haven't touched it since. And then obviously things have gone how they've gone. We've learned more about it, and it's kind of like, I just haven't touched it since. However, with that said, I'm not surprised when I hear established artists like yourself, like already had envisioned. For example, let's put it this way. If AI stuff was ethical, we'd be using it how we use generative tools like Houdini or geometry nodes or whatever as well. Like, just, it'll be supplementing workflow. I personally just not a fan of the idea of just having something to make something for me in terms of like the finished thing. Like, that just does not do it for me.
No.
Even if it was like meant the industry is over tomorrow, I'm still going to be wanting to create things.
Yeah.
And
same.
my relationship with creative is the way it creates. So when I see like here established artists like yourself, I always expect, and it kind of proves my point, how you've used it as well. Like, artists will always use it as part of their process as opposed to the conclusion to it as well. So yeah, that's my take on it in that sense. Like you just said, if you were doing photogrammetry, then the conclusion would have been the same. It just would have been a bit longer, right? Like, it would have been a case of the same assets that you're sourcing as opposed to relying on someone's data sets and all that kind of stuff. And just the whole AI in terms of industry and the people backing it and the money that's being flooded into it as well. It's it brings me back to when social media became a thing. We're old enough to know what life was like before that and when it came along, also with internet as well. And I remember, and I feel myself doing the same thing now, where it was, I was had everything at arm's length, and I just waited for it to become part of my life if I couldn't avoid it. And I think I'm doing the same with that now. So yeah, that's my current stance on it as well. But yeah, sometimes I'm like, it's never going to bother me. Some days it's like, the world's ending. Everyone, get your go bag or whatever it's called and just run off kind of thing. But yeah, where do you think it's going to headed? Where do you think it's all headed?
Well, unfortunately, the way it's headed is the money people are going to utilize it in order to cut costs. And it's just inevitable, because the people who run big companies, even big game companies, they're not interested in artwork. They're interested in their bottom line. They're interested in the shareholders. So I just don't really know what you can do about that. The cynical side of me says, if I can speed up my workflow and make myself more valuable, maybe that will make me economically viable for longer. I just don't know. Going back to your point, even if I'm not getting paid for it, I will still create, because it's a fundamental part of my existence. Like I will always be creating something. I'll just go back to being an electrician, because you can earn similar money being an electrician. But I'll still be doing drawing in my spare time, and that would be very, very sad, because I love my life at the moment. I love my job. But I just don't know what the answer is. It's like, I know there's people fighting for like legislation and going to court and things like that, which is very noble. But as we've just seen with the recent change in administration in America, the new administration is going, full steam ahead with AI. So I just don't know. I honestly don't know what the solution is.
Mhm.
I I can just only speak for myself. I'm not interested in AI doing anything for me in terms of like producing finished artwork or taking any of the fun parts out of my process. Um, I'm just going to have to see how things develop. I suppose I'm
Yeah.
just going to keep producing things in my style, my kind of brand of hard surface design. People seem to want that at the moment. I don't really know what I'm going to do when the need for that dries up.
Mhm.
I just try not to think about it. You could also argue that maybe I'm contributing to my own downfall by using something like Viscom. But I'm just not sure yet. I don't know.
Mm.
Is it like a
Yeah,
head in the sand thing, like just pretending none of this sort of
exactly.
exists?
Like,
Yeah.
but then other things as well. Like, when I look at what my priorities are in life, like there's other things that I need to take care of first.
Mm.
Obviously, earning money is one of them, and there's a lot of jobs that I've done that I've absolutely despised, but I was very good at them because I had to do them. So if it gets to the point where like 5, 10 years time, there's still an industry and we can still earn money, which I believe there will be, and I hope we will be, whether it looks the same, who knows? But then 10 years ago, the industry did not look how it looks now. Like
Yeah,
it
that's
looks
true.
very, very different. And yeah, I'm not rich enough to be able to say, no, I don't want to do that. Like I still have to earn a living. So, like what did they say in Game of Thrones? Bend the knee. Like I might have
Yeah,
to,
yeah.
if I have to pay the bills because bills don't give a shit. But at the same time, with the priorities that like my family, for example, and there's a lot of other things going on, like, yeah, like similar to yourself, like if it means I have to go back to just making art on my dime, then fair enough. And figure things like that. But like, I my identity is artistry, but
Mm.
being an employed artist, as much as I like it to be, and last year as a freelance was very brutal for me anyway. So it's kind of like
Mm.
a wake up call, knowing that okay, yeah, I'm very close to the edge of the plank, and I'm
Yeah.
have to jump at any point as well. So there's always that reality as well. I know what being made redundant is like, so I've been through those kind of experiences before as well. So it's not like, yeah, I'm not like naive in terms of like knowing that even when things are good, your job can always be on the line as well. So there's always that kind of angle to it as well. But at the same time, there's a wave of concept artists that, from speaking to people, like it's more popular than ever.
Yeah.
So these people still want to create stuff. And yes, there's going to be some industries that might want to just click and make something because of the culture of whatever the stakeholders may be. But there's a few things that I've experienced. Like I used to work a lot in consumer electronics. And one thing that happens is when they bring out something innovative and new,
Yeah.
there's a lot of spiel, there's a lot of grift talk, there's a lot of like, this is the next best
Hype.
thing, just to sell
Yeah.
units and then see what happens afterwards.
Mhm.
One of those things being 3D TVs. Oh, they said
Yeah, I remember those. Yeah, yeah.
And there's a whole thing of like how you demo things, getting people to see them,
Yeah.
because obviously selling those meant more markup and what have you. And then there's a lot of energy, and you got to try and translate that energy to customers. Those that were ethical definitely just scammed customers as well.
Mm.
But then when it never took on, it just went away, and then
Mm.
everyone pretends that they never pushed it, kind of thing. So
Oh, like
there could be
NFTs, you
that
mean?
angle there. Oh yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
There's those kind of stuff as well. And there's a lot of stuff that like these lot try, and there's a lot of things you can look into. And I think it's very important for people listening. Is this is something that is going to be our facing, whether you want to be in it in a way where you want to capitalize on it or not. Like it's something to research on. Who's involved in this? Stakeholders, obviously here in the UK, mainly because of things like Brexit and loads of other things as well. Like they're really trying to bring investment in on AI. And there's like, from what I read today, talk of like, we're just going to massage copyright a little bit just so people can get access. And
Yeah.
you're allowed to opt out, which is like crazy. But,
Mm.
yeah, I can see where that comes from, because if you want to bring investment in, and there's obviously like writing blank checks for it right now, people will do anything for the short term, but not thinking a long term, which is,
Yeah.
when you reach middle age like us, for example, like you kind of see that happens a lot throughout history as well. So it's something to definitely like brush up on for people, who are not clued up on it. Like it's definitely affecting you. It's also interesting to hear like some people at uni or studying who are like, it obviously a threat. I'm going to keep an eye on things. And I think it will be the younger generation that define how it will be and how it's used and things like that. There's a lot of stuff. People mention Gen Z more a lot of the time, especially people that I know and people older than me, in a negative sense.
Mm.
But they're a group of people that do things in a particular way, and that's how they want to do things. And they're all of working age now and paying taxes and all that kind of stuff as
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
So what the next generation want to do will kind of dictate how things will be. So yeah, it's hard to figure things out, especially when you want to try and figure things out as well. Which I guess is like a non-answer to anything.
Well, I guess the way that I see it is, well, so when the NFT thing happened, I was guilty of this as well. You just go, oh my God, I've got to get on this because everybody's making, Ben Maro's making £1 million or whatever. I need to, you get that kind of FOMO. But I haven't had that with the AI thing. I love doing what I do without it. So it's not something I'm thinking like, oh no, I need to do this, otherwise I'm going to get left behind. I want to stay true to the things that I enjoy doing. I'm just not going to want AI to do for me. Generating 3D models in Viscom. I don't really enjoy making 3D models, so that was kind of a little bit of a shortcut for me. And then I can get onto the designing bit and the making the image, which I find really enjoyable. But it's not something that I'm thinking, oh, I have to incorporate AI into every part of my workflow because otherwise I'm going to get left behind. I just don't really sort of have that same kind of FOMO with the whole NFT thing. But maybe I think where I'll leave that is because you hear people who are just getting into the industry or they're looking for a job and it's like, oh well, what's the point, because I'm up against all of this, it's insurmountable, like I'm never going to get in. And I think it's easy for me to say, obviously, and I appreciate that, but I think it's important to be doing the artwork that you want to do because you love doing it and because you have this you have to express yourself. You have this expression, this thing that you want to produce, and you keep doing it and you get better and better. You shouldn't obviously, we ultimately want to get paid for our artwork, but I think the thing that makes that kind of genuine and it makes it, like we said earlier, this is what makes you get up in the morning and do it all the time because you love doing it and you want to express yourself in that way creatively. And it's a struggle and it's difficult and you need to learn more and you need to get better. And yes, AI can do it faster, but I just think you shouldn't be doing it because you desperately need a job and you need to pay the bills. You should be doing it because you love doing it. And then if you can get yourself into a position where you're good enough and people want to employ you, then that's like amazing. But it is very difficult. But yeah, the problem is we're having a bit of a sort of a shake up in the industry at the moment where people are getting laid off, companies are closing down. I do feel like that's going to kind of stabilize and new companies are going to start up and people are going to start hiring again. So it may feel like things are a bit sort of hopeless at the moment, but there are going to be companies that spring up that are going to want to create proper games or proper films and not use AI, and it's not going to be big corporations who want to cut corners and save money, and there are going to be people who are going to want to buy products that aren't made with AI because people understand that, going back to my previous analogy, it's not valuable because it's so abundant. I didn't finish my gym analogy before. What I was going to say was if everybody had like a six-pack and was really muscly, then those things wouldn't be impressive because everybody would have them. If they were easy to achieve, then they wouldn't have
man.
value.
I'll take one. Let's find out. Let's
you get your shortcut. Yeah. Just tell everybody you went to the gym. Yeah, man. Yeah. But anyway, yeah. I feel like I'm waffling slightly, but I haven't quite figured out all this kind of stuff yet. But it's just an ongoing thing, isn't it? But I just think
yeah, I think that's the thing. It is like something that you can't figure out as it's constantly shifting and shape shifting, and viewpoints will change. Your software input viewpoints, sometimes you'll be like, no, I don't want this, and it's all depending on what's offered as well. But yeah, it's one of those ones. Gavin, we can leave it there. You've got a lot of exciting things happening this year based on what you just said. So if anything that you can reveal, what can we look forward to you as we head out?
Yeah, well, I've really enjoyed making tutorials, so I'm gonna make some more tutorials. People seem to be interested in the way that I sketch and the way that I design and think, and so I've really enjoyed doing that. So I'm going to keep doing that. Add into my Gumroad. I'm getting married in 3 weeks, which I'm really looking forward to. And then like I said, I kind of said before, but I'm going to be starting as a principal concept artist at id Software, which is like my dream job, my dream company. Can't quite believe that 7 years ago I was, scrabbling around trying to make money as a teacher and as an interior visualizer. I just cannot believe that I'm working at like one of my dream companies with my dream concept artist. It's just like mind blowing to me. I'll just give you one little anecdote before we finish. Remember when I said I went to Brighton? I started college when I was 18. No, I was 19 and then 20. So it's 2 years because I started a little bit late. I remember going into Brighton Town Centre and picking up my copy of Doom 3 when Doom 3 came out. And I remember that was just such a monumental thing for me. It's just like, I remember I played Doom 1 and Doom 2 when I was a kid. This 2D pixelated, and then it's like, oh my God, it's like 3D and you get to see all the demons in 3D and it's just, and look at the BFG. And I remember holding it in my hand, walking back to college thinking like, I cannot wait to get home and play this. And now I'm going to be working with those guys, going to be working in that company. It's just I just cannot believe it. I sometimes wonder if I've died or I'm in some kind of coma or something. Do you know what I mean? It's just unbelievable. But I'm moving out. Me and Jordan are moving out to Dallas in at the end of March. I'm going to start working with id Software and Emerson Tongue. I'm very excited.
Awesome. I hope that goes smoothly, and
Thank you
all
very
the
much.
best with the new adventures and stuff. And Gavin, is amazing chatting with you.
Yeah. Cheers, buddy.
Thanks.
See ya.
A huge thanks to Gavin for that profound conversation. Be sure to hit the links to see what he's up to and to give him a follow. Then head to learnsquare.com to take your portfolio and artistry to the next level. I've been your host, Aaron Danda. Till next time.